Hey everyone, my name is Anshin Kelly, and I'm an intuitive healer and traditional midwife. I want to start by saying that I had 5 natural births, 4 of which were unassisted births or free births, which means that there was no medical professional or midwife at the births. All the children were healthy in utero, all the children, including the free birth children, were healthy in utero and at birth and beyond. I wanted to get on here and talk about free birth as an extraordinary humbler. I didn't always feel like having a free birth. It wouldn't have been my first choice. I think probably with a couple of the free births that I had. And the reason is because I felt that innately, as a woman, I really longed for that woman to woman and community support. And so I'm going to get into an issue that I feel is fundamental to the prevention of the healing that could happen in our modern society with women. That issue is this narrative that having choices is sort of the beginning and the end of fundamental empowerment for women. And while it is a start, having choices is not what life is about. Of course, there's an important layer to life in which having a choice is what helps us to grow and to be cultivated in the divine and deep physical human experience. However, it is not true that having choices is fundamentally what life is about. Okay? And that is the central narrative that is pushed in modernity and women's culture. Life is fundamentally about having responsibility and accountability. That's what life is fundamentally about. Life can't be fundamentally about only, having the power to choose. There are so many fundamental things in life that we don't have any choice over. And we are better for it. We don't have any choice whether the sun rises or sets. We didn't have any choice over the fact that we were born. We're here, and that's it. We didn't have any choice, we won't have any choice whether or not we die at the end of our lives. Okay? And when we make a choice regarding these fundamental life-death questions, there's always consequences. And we always have to face them. And if we don't, the consequences are even greater. Okay? And the mess gets thicker if we don't face them. I think that our obsession with choice in modern culture, and then I specifically talk about women's culture, is overall extremely detrimental. Instead, we need to start awakening the modern mind to this understanding that fundamentally life is about accountability and responsibility. And the way this is deeply tying into my free birth experience and the experience and reality of free birth overall. And I just want to take this moment to say that, the world over, free birth in unassisted birth is our modern terms. Okay, the world over, like thousands of women, if not millions of women a day, okay, give birth without medication, without assistance, and it's no big deal because birth is the most ancient fundamental act. Okay, and it's been around for up to 2 million years, okay, in human history. And it's the reason for existence. World over, free birth, natural birth is just childbirth. I wanted a midwife. I think for most of my free births, but I had to learn about a sense of responsibility and accountability as a mother towards my child that eventually I would bequeath to my legacy. I could not be awake to and conscious of the constant fight that would be, defending my rights, my birthrights, and my choices, right, in the hospital. I couldn't be awake to the fact that that would be a constant fight. And then feel accountable and responsible enough to allow my baby to be in that situation. This sense of responsibility tied into the baby's presence, and life force within me was humbling, like to a point of annihilation of ego, okay, or any kind of fear or doubt, self-doubt, right? Overwhelming sense of accountability and responsibility towards my child, and protecting them as their mother, made me surrender all that mental or material doubt and shadow energy in me. And I thought to myself, okay, we're at this point where I'm just materially, mentally annihilated. And then I thought, well, am I capable? That's the only question I have. Like, am I capable to take this on? And I had to come to the conclusion that if I feel this sense of responsibility towards my child, then I must be. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel it. Freebirth has the power to humble and crumble, okay? This humble and crumble what? This identity that we have cultivated in modern culture that gives us this illusion that life is about choices. It's not fundamentally about choices, okay? I've said this to dozens of women over my practice, okay, over the last 15 years. Like, life is not a American bread aisle, okay? What do I mean by that? I am astounded at the hundreds of kinds of so-called bread that we have. I am overwhelmed by the amount of choice. If you think about what bread is, bread has been nourishing people since time out of mind, okay? Bread is flour that's made from grain. All right? And actually, that even Western science is starting to acknowledge that what we have and all these choices that we have in the aisle is actually not bread. Okay? The grain or the chemical makeup of the grain has been so processed and distorted. Okay? Even right down to the genetic distortion when they plant it, okay, in a seed, for when they plant it, that it's not even bread anymore. So to me, this is such a powerful analogy to this delusion that life is about choices, okay? Life is going to be accountable, about accountability and responsibility. Then we have an accountability and responsibility towards the original nourishing quality of bread that we ultimately didn't have a choice in creating, okay? What I mean by that is that we gathered the ingredients, okay? But there are higher forces. Call it nature. Call it whatever you want. Either way, there is a higher force and responsibility that is in us and all around us. Free birth, in my experience, is incredibly humbling and crumbling. It crumbles this modern worldview that I think at this point in the game we are seeing is not working. Okay, is not sustaining. All right, the bread that sustained us for hundreds of thousands of years, all right, is not the bread that we created out of our choice. The bread that we created out of our choice isn't even bread anymore. It's been so distorted, our bodies don't even recognize it, okay? And there's consequences to that. There's inflammation that occurs in the body that is causing all kinds of intestinal problems. And then there's a cascade of problems after that, right? Because the ability to digest and to metabolize is central. On a soulful level, I didn't have a choice, okay? I was driven by a sense of responsibility to protect my babies, my children, the life growing inside me from what I knew was aggressively controlling and dangerous psychologically, that was going to potentially interrupt the delicate balance of birth and what that is on an ancient and integral level. I'm not suggesting that free birth is for every woman, okay? But I know to my core that it's for many more women than actually go through with it, okay, in our country and in our modern worldview and society. The medicalized world has its place, okay, and the problem isn't that it doesn't have hang on. my thoughts together here, my words and my thoughts together. The problem isn't that the medical field exists or that medical procedures when it comes to childbirth exist. The problem is that they've overstepped in an enormous way, in a way that has disrupted and traumatized and disturbed fiercely, severely, the cycle of womanhood and childbirth, which is the continuation of humankind, which is at the essence of life itself. How do I know that? I've been in alternative women's health for 15 years. I've helped hundreds of women, okay, on their health journeys and birth journeys. The bodily and psychological and spiritual trauma that women aren't even aware of. They know that something is wrong, and they might deal with chronic pain all the time, or anxieties or depression or fear, but they don't know why. They're disconnected from the source of the problem. And the source of the problem lies in the fact that we have been cultivated in a culture that pushes this narrative that ultimately it has no basis in reality, that life is about choices primarily. This phrase, my body, my choice, it can only go so far. I was just talking to a woman the other day. Actually, maybe I can stop and tell a story about a woman who, she was thinking about having a natural birth, and then, the pregnancy had been extremely difficult, or had had more challenges than the other ones. And she had had epidurals for her other children, and they had been positive experiences for her. I mean, okay, all right, that's one layer that it's a positive experience for you, but what about the facts? And the fact is that epidurals are a cocaine derivative, okay? And the baby is getting 2 to 3 times or more of the epidural than the mother. And that just makes sense because all this blood is being pumped to the baby to try and support the baby. But the problem is that the blood is now contaminated with cocaine derivatives. And it is not an unknown fact in the medical field that babies who go through epidural, inductions and stuff, have a difficult time breathing when they're born. And they often have to go to the NICU, okay? Be there for examination for a while. And this separation of mother and child becomes normalized in societies. And then you get a couple of generations, or few generations, or, try a few generations, normalize the separation of mother and child and contamination of the birthing blood of the mother's body and the baby's body. And you get a society, since babies and mothers are at the center of life, of humanity, human existence, you get a society that is fundamentally disconnected from origin, from the source. Anyway, and this mother said, I was thinking about having a natural birth, but I was thinking about, since the pregnancy had been such a challenge, that I would just do an epidural just to make it easier on me. And the first thing that comes to mind, first of all, I'm not condemning this woman, okay, or judging her harshly, okay? I'm just cutting through this culture of too many choices, okay, that is masquerading around as something that is sustainable or stable. And the first thing that came to mind when she said that was that the pregnancy has nothing to do with the baby. Her pregnancy doesn't have anything to do with the baby. Choices don't have anything to do with her baby. Her choices are driven by her sense of choice, okay? And not responsibility or accountability. One should not decide on getting an epidural injection into your bloodstream on the basis that, you want to make things easier on you. I'm a mother of 5, okay? That's not setting you up in a good, strong place for motherhood. Because let me tell you, there are a lot of things in motherhood that you don't have any choice with. You just have to move forward with the challenges as they are. Circling back to the my body, my choice narrative. That can only go so very far. I was just talking about, okay, we can just use the example of the woman I just said. Okay, her body, her choice, fine. But we're dealing with a baby, okay, who you would think is at the center of, it's the center of this birth, this pregnancy. What a concept, right? And the baby has a body, okay? But the baby doesn't have a choice. The baby is here, okay, whether they like it or not, and the baby has to be born whether they like it or not. And the mother needs to align with that in order to have the best outcome possible. The thing is, when you only live life according to your choices, very readily you eventually don't have a choice. It's not your choice anymore. Epidurals are known to, even in the medical field, they're known to create a cascading effect that leads to cesarean section. Cesarean sections are major surgery. I've spoken to hundreds of women at this point and helped them through their birth journeys and their motherhood journeys, through the challenges of uterine trauma. Okay, this is no joke. It's major surgery. You have to cut through your abdominal muscles and everything to get to the uterus, and then you have to cut open the uterus. And I was just speaking to a mother today and telling her how you cannot surgically remove a placenta without killing the mother. So if the placenta doesn't detach from the uterine wall during a cesarean section because it's not a natural way to birth, then they leave it in there. They have to leave. They have to leave whatever inside, whatever they can't get, and the mother's body has to process that and absorb that, or expel that after she's sewn up. The fact is, once your body maybe has seized or frozen up, or God forbid the baby is traumatized and can't come out, and it's no longer your choice. It's now out of your hands. So you might have made a choice, okay, to have an epidural, but very quickly, and there's a lot of precedent to support this, you now no longer have a choice in the matter. You have to get this baby out. But there were a lot of steps before that should have come not on the principle of choices in the American bread aisle, but on the principle of responsibility and accountability. A higher power and a sense of responsibility and accountability, and that higher force, emulating from life itself, from the creation of life itself in your body, from this baby, would also help women come out of this conditioning of just handing over all trust to an outside, so-called authority. This would lead women to self-education and true self-empowerment.